Where do you start when you look at this Pittsburgh Penguins team, which is dead last in the Metropolitan Division?
Oh, boy. It's an ugly place, Bob. I mean, the goaltending could be better, but that's not going to fix all of their woes. And to PK Subban, I mean, congratulations. Welcome to 2025. We've been wrestling with this for a number of years. This isn't exactly a new topic, but how to get out of it, it's a tough one with no movement clauses, with what they have available. I'm not absolving Kyle Dubas by any stretch, but yes, Sidney Crosby deserves better, but it's been a case of bad GMing dating back to Ron Hextall, some of the contracts that he handed over, and then Kyle Dubas came in and has kind of made problems for himself. Look at the Tristan Jarry contract. Look at the Ryan Graves contract. All of this stuff hasn't been nearly good enough, and I wish I saw a clear path out, but there's not much.
No, and Jason, their goaltending issues have gotten worse. A lot of people thought that the old Blomqvist would be an answer. They have another kid down there who may be an answer or not. Nedeljkovic is what he is. Jarry doesn't appear to be anything but a buyout. They buy him out, get rid of him. Where are they with regard to goaltending, and how do you solve that situation?
I don't see a solution, Bob. I think they're screwed. They are.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, hold on here. Here's what this team did. They hired Kyle Dubas to bring them back to contention. To Jason's point, his signings were so bad, he immediately said, you know what, actually the plan has changed. My new plan is to try to rebuild on the fly. So they're stuck in this in-between, like all of our teams here, where they're trying to do two things at once. They had a Pirates offseason. They traded for Kevin Hayes because they wanted the draft picks. They signed Matt Grzelcyk to a one-year deal. They brought in low-risk, high-reward young guys. So to Subban's point, does Sidney Crosby deserve more than that? Yes, but it's their own doing. I mean, everyone has a say in this, including him, not because his play's been amazing, but he wanted to go down like Thelma and Louise with Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang.
And Mark, when you go down the nostalgia role, you're in trouble, because if you're trying to win that way and now try to rebuild that way, you can't do both, and they're clearly trying to do both.
Yeah, I've said for a while, I think Dubas had a good enough resume before he got here to show he knows what he's doing.
Except goaltending.
Wow.
He didn't do that well at Toronto.
He found himself in a bad predicament, brings you to your point of Hextall, I think, where he put himself in the situation where he had no other choice to sign Jarry, in my opinion, at that point.
Well, yes, he did.
I don't think so. What would you have went with?
I don't know, someone who didn't have a history of always being injured and coming up small in the biggest of games.
Regardless, he still made the signing. I mean, it's on Dubas. He created that. He went out and traded and gave up what he did for Erik Karlsson. Has that paid off? No, it has not.
Mark, Washington went out and traded for a backup goalie on another team, and he might win the Vezina this year.
Logan Thompson.
So there's guys out there.
For 2 third-round picks because he didn't want to be a backup to Hill in Las Vegas.
So I think you're putting a lot or some blame on Dubas, yes, but I think he was put in an extremely poor position to be able to succeed.
But he knew the situation. He knew it when he came here.
Yes.
They had chosen that nostalgic
We don't know
road.
what Fenway Group is telling him either.
Okay, but Mark, no one held him at gunpoint and said, hey, give Ryan Graves this contract.
Yes,
hey, trade for Erik Karlsson. Those are two terrible moves.
Well, and Tony's right, too, that the plan changed in the middle of it. I mean, that is true. This is not like they made moves that theoretically pushed them closer to contention and then said, oh, wait, hang on, we're not as close as we thought we were. We're going to slow play this. And that put them in the middle. And now they're stuck with a whole bunch of no movement clauses, and you can't even do anything to get out of it. Even if he wanted to make moves. But you can't just trade Evgeny Malkin out of nowhere.
The thing with Dubas is when he was in Toronto, he rebuilt that, right? So you would think he would come here
over a long period of time.
Well, you would think he had that same mindset.
Mark, rebuilt it to what? They haven't won more than a single playoff series there.
Well, they were still.
I mean, he got them from really bad to mediocre at least, but it took like 5 years.
Great. Wow.
I'm not endorsing it. I'm just trying to translate.
I mean, I think we're just putting a lot of blame on where it shouldn't be. I think Dubas deserves some playing,
well, he's going to have a chance. He has a long-term contract. He's going to have a chance to figure out what's next and what's next with the
Well, Mark, I'll tell you what. We'll give you as much time as you need. You can start to give us the good moves he's made, and we'll all sit here and listen. Give us the great moves Kyle Dubas has made as Penguins GM.
Well, those 29 draft picks they have acquired over the next couple years.
And what have they turned into? They've got one of the worst.
Years. Let's see.
Oh, so you're saying he hasn't done anything good yet. We're waiting for the good moves to happen.
I think he was brought in a bad situation of trying to play the middle, being told to play the middle, although he didn't want to play the middle.
I don't know. Hextall was probably told to play the middle, too. We don't use that as an excuse for him.
I understand what Mark is saying. Mark is saying that what they're...
Jason, I asked him to name one good move. He can.
And he named the draft picks that they've accumulated over time, which in a couple years are really going to pay off. It just doesn't.
Are
what
they?
He was brought,
second and third round picks in the NHL
I don't
always
know,
bear
Andrew, but
fruit.
I mean, I'm not defending what they're doing now. What I'm saying they're doing now is not good enough. But Mark is saying he's done some things, and that is stocking draft picks. 30 picks in 3 years is a pretty good thing. It just doesn't help them right now.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of high-end ones in there. They have a lot of picks. But I'm going to be interested to see what those guys turn into. And that's how he will ultimately be judged if he's still here during that time. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Four Nations success. Will it carry over into the regular NHL and beyond? That's next on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back. We're still talking hockey. Believe it or not, there's a lot to get into. But if you look at Washington, just to carry over what we ended the last segment, they did a rebuild, even though they kept Ovechkin, Tom Wilson, and John Carlson. And they have been able to bring in guys, shrewd trades like Logan Thompson and others. Big signing was Matt Roy, a defenseman. While he signs there for about the same amount of money that Ryan Graves signed in Pittsburgh, things have turned out totally different. But now, I want to get into the Four Nations. Andrew, I want to start with you on this one. Whopping success. A lot of people wondered if it would be, because it is a, quote, exhibition. Shows you what patriotic stuff will do to ratings. Will it carry over? Will it make a difference?
No, it won't carry over at all. We'll have Gary Bettman on our show tomorrow. I'll ask him that question. I don't see how. How do you convince people that wanted to see fights and patriotism and the tribalism that is our country versus theirs? How do you get them to care about Seattle Kraken, Los Angeles Kings games? You can't.
I mean, short of playoff series, I do think there is a bump up for playoffs, don't you? I mean, I looked at the last couple of years, and there has been.
Yeah, I think there will be, just because some of these guys became more household names. I think it helps Connor McDavid's legacy, for example, that he scored a goal in this tournament, and it was the most watched NHL game of all time. I mean, it's great. When it's best on best, country versus country, people love it. Going back to 2010.
Yeah.
You haven't Bettman on. Why don't you ask him if he's going to kill this like they killed the Stadium Series and the Winter Classic? I think that's the big thing, right?
You mean
got
overdoing
to be
it?
selective
Yeah.
here. You
could
wear
some out pretty quickly, but I don't know if this will happen. This is just.
You can't. I mean, it's not going to happen for the next 5 or 6 years, because I think they can't be able to do that. But that's what I worry about with the NHL, saying, oh, this worked. Let's do 4 different tournaments of 8 different countries, and
Gary.
just kill it to death.
Hey, Gary, Andrew, and Chris here. Are you going to run this into the ground?
Well, I mean, it's a good point. I would say that.
And I worry about that with the NHL, Bob. I don't think it's going to have a discernible bump. I'd like to think that. It was highly entertaining. I think it's something the NHL should do on the regular, and they will do with the Olympics and the World Cup of Hockey and all that stuff. I think it reaches a special level that you don't otherwise get in the middle of the season. I'm thankful they did it, but yeah, going back to the regular season, I don't see how casual hockey fans are suddenly going to be, running to their televisions to see a West Coast game.
Especially, forget that. What about the Capital game on Saturday? It lasted
Be running from your television for that,
like,
Mark.
oh, okay,
right.
that's enough.
I have 1 minute. Getting back to the Penguins and where they are. They're going to have a March 7th trade deadline. Andrew, do you expect a lot of activity to confirm this is a rebuild or not?
No, because I think they're still going to try to talk themselves into attempting next year to have it both ways. So I don't think they want
Can't
to
survive like that.
I
They just
agree,
can't.
but I don't think they'll take Raquel off Sidney Crosby's line. And I don't think they'll find a home for Erik Karlsson's contract. So I think other than a guy like Matt Grzelcyk and Anthony Beauvillier, I think what you see is what you get.
Who are they?
I don't disagree. And I don't know how
So you don't think they're going to trade Raquel?
No.
I don't.
Even though he's at a high part of his.
No,
Leverage.
because I think what Andrew said, I think they're going to try to target next year and think that they can accelerate this and compete for next season. Again, we're going to sit here and disagree with them, but if you ask me what I think they're going to do, I think they're going to hang on.
Why? You think they will trade him?
I think if they get an offer, they should. Absolutely.
Well, of course. We're not debating should.
There's always somebody else coming along, and Sidney Crosby, he's proven he can play with a lot of guys, and there have been guys that have come and gone.
If for some reason you can attach like a Graves or Jari contract to it, Bob, I don't know what scenario that would be. It's really far-fetched.
Just to get
I
rid of
would
more,
do it,
yeah.
but other than that, I don't see how they could.
I don't think you can underestimate Sidney Crosby's power in that organization of saying Dubas.
Yeah, but does he want to? Does he want to be out of the playoffs 3
He
straight
wants
years?
to be productive. He wants to play well. He wants to have points.
I think he wants more than points, and if you're going to do that, they have to take a different
He
turn.
wants to play with some talent, and that's as much talent you have on the roster right now.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Indianapolis Combine. That's coming up this week. So far, we haven't seen a lot of activity. What's going to happen there with regard to the Steelers? And later, we'll get into Pitt and another loss, which will probably cost them an NCAA tournament. Next. All right, we're back talking about the NFL Combine. It is the offseason. The official first day of the new season begins in March. Mark Kaboly, you're going to be going there. What do the Steelers focus in on there? And then we'll get into the quarterback situation later, which is continuing to be an ongoing story. But what do they need more than anything?
What do they need? Receiver, defensive line, corner, running back. But you have to be able to choose the right guys. I mean, you'll be able to watch this, obviously, on TV near the end of the week and crunch all the numbers whatsoever. But the most important part of this activity is the behind the scenes, the interviews, to see if these guys are legit football junkies. And that's what you need. And I truly believe that right now, if you're not 100% sold in and being a football guy, you're not going to succeed in this league, and they have to be able to determine that. That determines whether you're a guy that's going to be around for a year. They didn't do that well with George Pickens, apparently. That's what I'm saying. You can't do that. So, I mean, what are you going to get out of Omar talking on Tuesday? Probably nothing, right? He's not going to come and tell us their plans on what the quarterback situation is and who they like. So, it's an important draft. They have to add to it, and this is just part of the process. But I wouldn't expect a ton of news coming out of this weekend.
Well, I think they lie at these things. I mean, last year, the first time Omar talked, he got asked a question to start mocking the idea of signing Russell Wilson.
That was me, thanks.
Yeah, and then they did. I didn't mean that.
Even Justin Fields, I think both of them were not in there.
Both ideas basically got shot down at the Combine last year, not just by him, but some reports that were out there, too, as a matter of fact. So, sorry, Mark, that was not you. But, so, I mean, that's the smoke and mirrors game that is the Combine and is the NFL offseason. Everything Mark said about some of their needs are true, but if they have the quarterback play they've gotten for the last 5 or 6 years, none of it's going to matter because they still can't compete with the best teams in the AFC until they get that position solved.
Yeah, and even what you need to see on the field, Bob, I don't think you're going to see this week. I mean, I look at defensive line, and I think they need a big physical run stopper, and I'm not going to feel any better about any of those options after the Combine. I don't care what a guy runs in a 40. I think a lot of this stuff is antiquated. I wish they dragged it into this century. Wide receiver, I think, is an obvious position of need, but, you know, are we really going to see something to see if Emeka Egbuka is the perfect fit based on the Combine? It goes much deeper than that.
The Stafford stuff is the biggest story. The fact that they're letting him go out and look for a trade.
Well, and that leads us to there are a lot of options out there. He now becomes the latest option. So, Mark, what about it? How soon do they have to make a decision? And would they go in the trade route? And what would it cost if they did? It won't be a first-round pick, I believe.
Oh, it's not going to be a first-round pick, but it's going to be a lot of money associated with that. You would assume he would want either a new deal or I'm not quite sure what the.
He's 37, though. What kind of new deal do you want?
Well, you know what quarterbacks get paid?
I know, but I don't know if I would. I've seen that with Russell Wilson. Do you want to go down that road again?
No.
Bringing in a veteran?
Well, Russ only made $1 million.
Yeah, but that total package, what was it, 49 mil, 40, whatever it was.
Yeah, he's still a $40+ million quarterback.
But you're not going to re-up that if you have a chance not to. I wouldn't.
Why would Matthew? I always ask that question, and it might sound like a broken record. Why would Matthew Stafford want to come here? He has the money.
Don't need to convince me of that.
He wants to win now.
I agree. Why
would he come
Fields?
here?
Other than it's an opening situation, Andrew. I mean, they got to figure out something. The question is, when do they get this figured out?
Well, hold on a second. A lot of people get hoodwinked by the Steelers, the allure and attraction of Mike Tomlin and all that stuff. So why would he want to come here? He might look at it like they make the playoffs every year and they don't have a good quarterback. So if you add me to the mix, they become a great team. He was a #1 overall pick. The guy's got to have a huge ego. He might not talk about it as openly as other guys like Rodgers and Ben, but I bet he has a very high opinion of himself.
You think he looked at the wide receivers? You think he looked at the offensive line? The offense?
Coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, he took the Lions to the playoffs before.
With much different talent.
I just think you're going to be very underwhelmed by their decision of quarterbacks.
Well, people said that last year. They went out and they completely
When do you think it has to? If they're going to sign one of these two guys?
Kyle Allen, no more.
I mean, people bring in Daniel Jones to the conversation, and I just, as a backup,
I
don't know
think you go with one of the two you have right now, and if that does not work out, then you go plan C, D, E, and F. And if you go down to F and you get Aaron Rodgers,
play a little game. We have 30 seconds. I'm going to give you one name. You tell me who the Steeler quarterback's going to be. Of all the people available, Jason, who do you think in the end will get it?
Russell Wilson, and I'm not happy about it.
Russell Wilson. How about you, Mark?
God. Seriously?
Yeah, I think I agree with him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I agree with him because I think Justin's going to find more money, more opportunity, a better place somewhere else.
Yep, and I think you're going to see Russ plenty excited to come back to Pittsburgh.
I'll say Stafford. I'll say Stafford.
For what?
For what do you mean? Like for how much money?
How much? No. For how many draft picks or whatever?
For a second and a third, and they're going to pay him $40 million a year.
Oh, God.
All right.
I thought you were a Daniel
we'll
Jones
see.
guy. Weren't you?
We got to take a break on that note. Think about that for a second. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Pitt Panthers. And it's not good times over there at Pitt, football and basketball. We talk about it next. All right, welcome back. We're talking about Pitt. Terrible loss yesterday. They had to win this game against a bad Notre Dame team without two of its top 5 scorers. And Jason Mackey, they did not. They lost the game. To me, they're not going to make this tournament, but they have Jeff Capel signed, like Pat Narduzzi, for multiple years. Where do they go from here?
Exactly where they're at, Bob.
No changes.
I don't know what they can do.
You can't buy
They're not
anyone
going to buy him out. There are too many years left on the contract. I think Pitt has too much financial problems to reckon with. But throw Pat Narduzzi into that discussion, the whole Victory Heights situation. I don't think they're going to spend money to buy out Jeff Capel. I mean, it's wholly disappointing. They should be in the tournament. They were in position to do it. The second half of their season has stunk. It was a depressing loss, and I don't think there's anything they can do about it.
I would be more worried, honestly, Pomp, if this was a couple years ago with Capel and you were stuck with him in recruiting classes. If you want to, you can go out there and pay some guys some money to come in here. So you could, in that theory,
That's part of the problem.
Get
Where do you get
quick.
that money?
They
They don't have money to pay guys off. You don't have to buy them out.
Because they're giving it all to the coaches. You got to start giving it to the players. So, I mean, in theory, you have a better chance of making a quick turnaround because if you just have the right donor who likes basketball and the right player.
Or if the coaches are smart, they donate some of their salary to the NIL collective, and that helps them get good players. Guys have done that. I mean, that's not something that's unheard of, especially coaches that are on the hot seat, like the situation.
But I mean, you're talking about bringing in marquee players here.
I mean,
You're gonna, you know how much? A lot of money.
I mean, in basketball, one guy
right
can make
now
a
is-
difference, right?
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
You need 2, though, really, I
Wow.
think.
Yeah, but I mean, do you think Jeff Capel's
What
going to
about-
donate half of his salary to his roster?
I wouldn't. But
No,
I think he'd probably try to win with what he has. I mean, that idea sounds good. I just don't think it's practical.
It's the same with football now. They're kind of stuck, and they need more money in football, and they can't do anything with it, can they?
Well, we'll see. I mean, there's this whole, again, Supreme Court, or it's in the courts, how the money's going to get distributed versus Title IX men versus women. I don't want to get people bogged down with the minutia of that. That might make it more of a level playing field. But Pitt is just squarely average in both of their big revenue-generating sports. And they're not bad enough where it's obvious, like it was with Kevin Stallings, that the coach needs to go. And they're also not good enough where they're making the tournament and winning tournament games or going to big bowl games every year in football. They're in purgatory.
Everyone's in the
That's
mushy
what I said.
middle.
Who's he
There's
talking
every one of these teams.
who's he talking
But I'm
about?
not wrong.
Who's
No,
he
you're not
talking
wong.
about?
I'm telling-
You talking
I
about the
agree.
Penguins, the Steelers?
Talking about all of them, except
Pirates,
the Pirates.
at least we know. at least they put it out in front what they are.
Real quick about the Pirates, I want to ask you this because Manfred came out to say today that, or over the weekend, that the economic system is not equitable. So what does that mean, if anything?
It means that they have acknowledged that there's a problem. I think there's posturing beginning for when the CBA expires after 2026, Bob. I was in a room with Manfred where he said, I wish there was a salary cap. He wants a salary cap. It's up to the Players Association. I don't know or think it'll ever happen, but I do think it's interesting that the league has set its position here, and I think they can have a salary cap if you can convince the other side.
And Rob Manfred will be joining us tomorrow.
You got both.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, geez.
Big
you have
show.
Commissioner Day
Goodell,
on 93.7 The Fan. Hey, right now it's not that, but it is this. Show me the savings time. Dazzling auto show offers at all number 1 Cochran locations going on right now. Find new vehicles starting under $19,000 with more than 175 models under $25,000. Plus, you get leases as low as $139 a month, financing from 0%, and savings up to $25,500. It's all going on now at number 1 Cochran locations and Cochran.com. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Before we go here, Pirates won today. They're 2-0. But 76.5 is the win total expected by all these sites. Andrew, you go over under 76.5?
I go over. I think they're going to have a winning record this year.
Okay.
See,
So does Jason. He agrees.
Okay.
He's making a face.
I thought I'd be the only person
No.
sitting here saying it, and then you'd yell at me.
See, I like to view in different terms rather than
And what terms are those? Always negative?
No, I like to say it's going to be 105, over 105 losses rather than wins.
All right. Well, hey, bottom line is they're going to get well-pitched games. They may not get
So
much
what are you
hitting.
saying?
I say they're going to go under, barely.
84,
Just because I
85
don't like
wins.
their hitting and they're off-season. That's going to do it for us.
85.
Wave
Nope.
goodbye, everybody. Good night. We'll see you again
Wow,
next Sunday night on
85.
another edition of the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Have a good week.